This is HBR News number 473, Redneck Rescue in North Carolina, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian. I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Mike and Hannah. And we're going to be talking about some news. So on this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be discussing an update regarding the Sam Bankman-Fried, I guess his accomplice, his femme fatale, his girl Friday or whatever they call it. So accomplice Caroline Ellison and what charges she ultimately had to deal with. FEMA drops the ball, and the men of North Carolina pick up the rebound and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. You guys already know that the flop before it's even out yet film Snow White, the remake featuring Rachel Zegler, who's these people, you know, what is the thing from SpongeBob? How many times we have to teach you this, old man? Like they just continually double down because it's all they know. And now we have this article from Variety, which I've archived, of course. Rachel Zegler on reinventing Snow White and Juliet and facing off against toxic Disney fans. I've watched women get torn down my whole life, said the multi-million-dollar actress. So we're gonna be right. We're gonna be looking at this article in the patron show, and I'm sure it'll be a riot. So if you guys want to join us in the patron show, please consider becoming a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com /subscribe and starting a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to watch all of the additional content, including like shows or videos that Allison's working on before they get made. There's also various little, I guess, like, subgroups within like that sort of, watch movies together, and they talk about writing, and they share their artwork and pictures of their dogs and pictures of their food or whatever. So it's a nice community, and we would really be glad to have you. So that's feedthebadger.com /subscribe. And if you don't want to wake up one day to find that we are no longer on places like YouTube and the other approved mainstream orifices of the internet, then please find our archive content at badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. Or subscribe to our Rumble, because I think that it's going to still be there. So we'd appreciate that as well. All right. With all that out of the way, let us get into today's stories. So first we got a follow-up on this story. Let me get my paperwork out here. Where is it? Here we go. So Caroline Ellison, a former top executive at Sam Bankman-Fried's cryptocurrency empire FTX, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. The sentencing came after substantial cooperation with the government in the prosecution of Bankman-Fried, her ex-boyfriend and founder of FTX, who was convicted for orchestrating one of the largest financial frauds in U.S. history. Ellison's role involved covering up the use of FTX customer funds to plug losses at Alameda Research, where she served as CEO. I think there should be a picture of here. Yes, as you can see, the temptress turned on Sam Bankman, and that she basically gave him up. She gave him up. She made some testimony. She cut a deal, however you want to call it, and she is serving a lower sentence. During the trial, Ellison's testimony was crucial, detailing how she and others were directed by Bankman-Fried to misappropriate billions in customer funds. Despite her involvement in the fraud, her cooperation, which included providing detailed accounts and incriminating documents, led to significantly lighter sentence compared to Fried's 25 years. In court, she expressed genuine remorse, and while her sentence could have theoretically been much longer, her assistance in the investigation, coupled with her remorse, played a critical role in the judge's decision. There's something I want to get into in terms of what she said about her relationship to Sam Bankman-Fried. I'll give you guys a guess as to like what her relationship with him was.
Did it involve thrall?
And grooming
Yeah.
of an adult.
But Ellison's case highlights the complexity of white collar crime. So her sentence also includes a significant financial penalty, with Ellison required to forfeit $11 billion. Well, one would hope, though it's noted she will likely not recover anything from the bankruptcy proceedings of FTX. This case, yeah. So here's what I want to go to here, because this is important. She said that there was, let me see. Oh yeah, here we go. The judge said that Ellison, this is the judge, and this is why I thought this story was interesting. The judge said that Ellison was vulnerable and exploited, calling Bankman-Fried her kryptonite. She could not resist his charms. Do I need to show you guys a picture of this guy again? There he is. This is the absolute Chad stud muffin that Ellison had no ability to resist. He so anyway, so this is like part of the reason why it appears that she got her lighter sentence, was because the judge showed pity on her and said that she was obviously used and manipulated and enthralled. Okay, so what do you guys think about this?
There's the elephant in the room, isn't there? The one about how women get more legal leniency than men across the board, less likely to be caught, less likely to be charged, less likely to be sentenced, less likely to be imprisoned, etc., even for exactly the same crime, which this kind of looks like it might be. And we're told that on this occasion, it's because she cooperated with the investigations. Was Sam Bankman-Fried even offered the option of such cooperation? Was he given the option of throwing Ellison under the bus, like she was given the option of throwing him under the same bus? I'm guessing the answer is no, and it's an educated guess. It's exceptionally difficult for a man to throw a woman under the bus. Legally speaking, I mean, physically speaking, I mean, look at her. She's a Cabbage Patch doll. You could pick her up with your pinky and throw her under a Segway, and she'd probably die. But in the legal process, all things are inverted. Prosecution, especially in high-profile cases, is about making an example of someone. It's about giving the people what they want. Well, it's not even about giving the people what they want. It's about giving the media what they want. Nobody cares about the people, but the media is this tank of ravenous man-eating sharks that needs to be fed, literally with men, wherever it's even feasibly possible. Even if a woman stabs a man to death 100 times while he's in the shower, they will scour the earth looking for a man to blame. And if they can't find one, the story gets buried. So there's this combination of factors. The legal system is compelled to show leniency to women, and the media system desperately wants blood, especially male blood. So if the blood is female, they don't get enough of it. Even if Bankman-Fried was offered the chance to pin everything on Ellison, even if she was the ringleader, then she'd probably still only end up going down for 3 years instead of 2, and he'd go down for maybe 5 instead of 25, and that's not good enough even in accumulation. I'm reminded of a story about Mitch Hedberg. Apparently he and his girlfriend went through an airport once, and he discovered he'd accidentally brought some drugs with him, and so he gave the drugs to his girlfriend, or at least he told security that the drugs belonged to his girlfriend, and she got away with a slap on the wrist and a warning, and they went on their merry way. Now, I can't remember where or when I heard that story, or what kind of drugs they were, or even if I've got the right person, or if any of it is true. For all I know, my source is it came to me in a dream. But what it tells us is true. When a man throws a woman under the bus, they can both get away with it. When a woman throws a man under a bus, that man's life is over. And I'm not saying you should try this. Please don't Please don't plant your drugs on your girlfriend and expect to get away with it, especially if your girlfriend leans anywhere near the political right, or woe betide she's some kind of filthy MRA. She's just as vulnerable to the chopping block as anyone else. And in any case, nobody should be throwing anyone under any buses. That's just bad form. I mean, it's not very helpful for the bus driver either. It's just going to ruin their day. I'm just saying, women get away with shit all the fucking time. Sometimes they don't even get a slap on the wrist. They get congratulated for something that would get a man buggered to death in prison. You shouldn't be taking advantage of this obvious fact, but you really ought to at least acknowledge it in the myriad occasions when it becomes so clearly and plainly true. Just saying. That's all I'm doing. I'm just saying. I'm not doing. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's no guarantee. It doesn't work every time. You could end up in serious trouble, especially if you're traveling to Russia with prescription pot or anything like that, and somebody happens to want to let loose a criminal and needs an excuse. Then you might find women being held accountable by somebody. But yeah, under the circumstances that we're looking at now, I just want to remind everybody that Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to approximately 25 years initially.
Yeah, 25
Now,
years.
granted, there's a little bit of hedging that can go back and forth in terms of how many of those 25 years he'll serve, but the same thing is true with her sentence. Every prisoner after sentencing gets an opportunity to participate in certain programs that will allow them to reduce their time served in return for things that are supposed to help them rehabilitate themselves, which means the distinct possibility is that this woman will spend no time whatsoever in jail beyond what it takes to get enrolled in and participate in those programs, and possibly may even be let out while participating. So he's probably going to get less than a full 25 years, but he'll serve time. She probably won't serve time when she gets. Also, I gotta say, ladies, you know, I'm sorry I sound so awful, by the way, people, but my allergies are absolutely killing me today. And so we'll see if the medicine kicks in any further than it already has. But I'm going to be sniffling at you. Sorry. But ladies, you get one choice out of two. You cannot have both. Either women are equal to men, as capable as men in every way, including the capability of smelling shit and noticing that it is actually shit and not, gold or silver or a steak or whatever. Or being a woman constitutes an intellectual disability every time you're around a dude that has a lot of money or high testosterone or good looks or any characteristic that you can blame for going completely dumb shit and doing stupid things in his presence. You can't have both. You can't be stupid because a guy has one characteristic about him that is interesting and might make you a little bit wet, and then claim to be equal to men, because men don't ever get that excuse. They don't ever get let off from anything based on that excuse, even if it is absolutely 100% true. If the sexiest, wealthiest, kindest, sweetest, girl next doorishest woman in the whole world came along and put some guy under her thrall and then whispered in his ear and talked him into some serious crime, he would still be 100% accountable. And she could probably even throw him under the bus for that. He doesn't get to plead retarded in the presence of the opposite sex in response to a very serious crime that he committed. Only women get to do that. Right? And if it's not true, and you deserve to get equal pay for equal work, and you deserve to be treated like you're competent to serve in high office and as CEOs of companies because you're equal to men intellectually and equal to men in accountability, then you cannot have being able to plead retarded in the presence of the opposite sex. If you get that, you don't get those other things. This is why very few CEOs are women. This is why very few politicians are women. Very few successful politicians are women. And the ones who are successful are embarrassing because they're constantly getting called out for corruption.
Mike, you're buzzing
Right?
for some reason. I don't know if it's your
Yeah,
jack or whatever.
it's probably the mic jack. But you cannot have that, women. Not to be taken seriously. We're looking at an election where people are saying it's time for the first woman president because it's a woman of color. What are we going to do if she just completely loses all intellectual capability because there's a hot guy around, or a rich guy around, or a powerful guy around, or a high testosterone guy around? Right? What's she going to do when she meets a prince from another country, a king from another country who has to have the gravitas of royalty? Is she going to become retarded? If that's the case, we cannot have a female president.
She will if it looks like she might go to jail like for a long
Yeah.
time. That's
Well,
really what
this
it's
woman
contingent on.
became her plea is that she became retarded because she thought this guy was hot, right? Which you know, a lot of women think a guy with dollar signs in his name is hot. You know, and frankly, yeah, Jen Bottle says this was the argument from the 50s and further back. Well, if it's demonstrated repeatedly in news stories about women's criminal pleadings to be true, then it's a fair story. You know, you get one choice. You cannot do this if you want women to be taken seriously as contenders in politics and business. You just can't.
Yep. I guess the only thing I'll add to that, and then we'll move on to the next story, is yeah, I mean, she was obviously breaking the law with him. She knew what she was getting into. She was fine when she was profiting and all that. And I mean, I understand that like the threat of going to jail is scary and that you know, like not everybody has, you know, is like so, you know, like principled and ride or die that they would like cover for, you know, or not snitch or not support them. And she just doesn't have that, and that's fine. Um, so, but again, we're just not going to pretend that that makes her a virtuous person. And I certainly don't think she was a victim because, I mean, first of all, I don't think this guy has that kind of riz. Maybe I don't get it, but not to the point where she's just like, I don't know what I was doing. He had so much power over me. Just
Well, when your wingman is Benjamin.
Yeah. But you know, this is not really surprising. You know, this hoe ain't loyal, and I would say I would suggest to the men in the audience that might be thinking about, you know, doing the same thing that this guy did to make a lot of money, and tell them not to like get involved with women at that level because they'll turn on you when it looks like they'll benefit themselves. But that just seems like an unlikely thing. I don't know how many like money launderers are in our audience, but I'm not too worried
Actually,
about it.
you know, thinking about it, since this chick got into, has anybody seen Caroline Ellison in our audience?
I pointed this
No.
out the first time we found out her name, and it was
Yeah,
a crazy coincidence. And ever since I pointed that out, she disappeared.
she's been gone. That's I
That is
can't imagine,
interesting. Wouldn't that be
but
something?
yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Obviously, it was always just a troll, but
Right.
it occurred to me that it was a troll who somehow knew Caroline Ellison's name before she was even in the news.
and vanished as
Hell of a
soon as she went to
sophisticated
jail.
troll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. That one has layers to it. All right. Well, anyway,
Something like
let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Just a little follow up. We're gonna move on to the next story. So here's the big one. The big story is North Carolina. So as many are left stranded without power and lacking in basic necessities in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and there's another one on the way, by the way. A group has formed to help bring relief due to FEMA's lackluster response to help those affected by the hurricane in North Carolina. A group of former off-duty military, first responders, National Guardsmen, and civilians, a lot of those guys in the South, by the way, and civilians has formed to help rescue hurricane victims and bring much-needed relief. The group, located in Swannanoa, North Carolina, is headed in part by ex-Green Beret Adam Smith. Yes, that's his real name, and is known by organizers as, quote, Savage Freedom's Relief Operation, end quote, which is SFRO, I guess, but is being colloquially referred to as the Redneck Air Force. Smith stated to reports from the New York Post, quote, this disaster has definitely proven without a shadow of a doubt FEMA's incompetence and incapability. Smith further added, quote, nobody out here wants the federal agencies to come in. FEMA has walked into operation centers like this and has attempted to just take over and tell them what they are doing is illegal and they're not allowed to keep going. I've seen it firsthand in this area. My biggest fear is they'll move into the area and in the process, they'll reinvent the wheel and rebuild the entire process. I've respectfully told FEMA individuals on a couple of different occasions, quote, don't come to our location. We don't want your help, end quote. What started as a small group on horseback providing search, rescue, and supply efforts is now a force of hundreds strong and functioning like a military operation, mostly men, by the way. The group has set up a forward operation base in a Harley-Davidson dealership, which boasts an all-volunteer fleet of nearly 36 helicopters. The group has largely shifted away from search and rescue and is now focusing on airdropping hurricane survivors food, water, generators, and other supplies. Smith's call to the federal government to stay out of their way has mostly been heeded, with one major exception, an unwanted appearance from President Joe Biden, which shut down all flight operations for 30 hours. Smith stated, quote, you know that President Trump hasn't been here? The Trump's team called and asked us if we wanted him to come in. We said we'd love to have him come in, but we don't want a temporary flight restriction in the area. So they said, okay, we'll wait. You know who didn't do that? The current administration, end quote. The group has raised nearly $250,000 on GoFundMe and is looking for another $250,000 to reach their goal of $500,000. So if you would like to help, look up Support Asheville's rescue efforts on GoFundMe. The donation drive is being held by John Paramore on behalf of Adam Smith.
So there's something that needs to be pointed out here first and foremost. All right. This is not the first time. This isn't the most prominent time. This is standard practice for men. And it reminds me of the news stories about the Cajun Navy and everybody acting surprised about the Cajun Navy. But prior to that, there has always been a profound response by men during natural disasters, national emergencies. They step up, and many of them risk their lives. And those that step up, whether they are doing something that directly risks their lives or not, they step up to rescue people, to provide resources. They bring in the resources, and then women help to distribute them. Women do get involved, but they don't do the heavy, scary work. They do the nurturing, direct, caring work. And that's not wrong, right? Because women are more likely to get themselves killed and not actually help the person they're trying to help if they try to do the men's jobs. So women that step up for this are smart, and they don't do that. And men who step up for this know what they're doing. The men who know what they're doing are the ones that are risking their lives. So you don't have some guy that just spent his whole life sitting behind a computer getting in a boat and trying to rescue people. It's guys that use boats all the time. It's guys who fly already. It's guys who are built for this. And that's the way men have always been. And when women call that toxic, that is a profound misunderstanding of men, a complete lack of gratitude that honestly is owed to men,
I think it's deliberate.
and
I don't
a
think it's stupidity.
disturbing sociopathic action of abuse toward men. Right? So we should be hearing from women all over how grateful we are that men do step up and do this, because we know we're not going to, and most of us can't. Right? That's one thing. The other thing is, the people of Appalachia, much like many other communities in the United States that have had repeated impacts of poverty and job loss and cultural decay and so on, have absolutely no reason throughout all of their history to ever trust the federal government. Ever. And that's enough said.
Yeah, and predictably, the oikophobic left has knee-jerk attributed this hurricane tragedy to climate change. Conveniently, that means they don't have to do anything about it other than taxing everyone even more. But it's worth pointing out that hurricanes have, in fact, been happening for quite a long time. Not just since before the advent of industrialization, but before the existence of human beings. Since before the existence of, let me check my notes, any form of life. I mean, according to all available records, it is quite unusual for hurricanes to make it as far as mountainous regions such as Appalachia. And for now, we'll put it on the back burner that this could conceivably be the result of man-made weather manipulation. Weird how man-made climate change is definitely a thing, but man-made weather change definitely isn't. I'm sorry if that comes across as anti-Semitic, but I'm not quite sure how anyone would instinctively draw that line. I would appreciate an explanation, though I don't think I'll get one. The point is, the Appalachian region has been occupied by human beings for a very long time. And I'm not just talking about European settlers, but it does include them. When everyone lived in log cabins, or indeed teepees, they were able to deal with these natural disasters. Why? Because they helped each other. It's part of human nature to help others who are in peril, and so they do, and so they always did. Not so much the teepee people. They were always at war with each other. But the log cabin people had this remarkable drive to help each other. Throughout all the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the earthquakes, they could always find good Samaritans who would go out of their way to help those in need. That's how America was built and indeed maintained. By all accounts, America is a hellscape of natural disasters. And it's a testament to the philanthropism of those European settlers that they were somehow able to build surviving infrastructures across America, despite all the natural disasters. I am, of course, referring to that glorious period in American history before the federal government existed, or at least before it grew like an ungodly tumor and sunk its demonic tendrils into everything. Instinctively, you would think that a federation of states would be a fantastic idea, so that all states could come together and pool their resources into helping whichever states needed help at any given time. On paper, it works, but as we're seeing in practice, it doesn't. Certainly not when you put a bunch of fucking socialists in charge of it. Not only are they not helping those in need. They're doing everything they can to prevent anyone from offering any help. They're not interested in helping Americans, especially not Americans who live in red voting states. America has always been held together by private enterprises, such as those operated by Elon Musk. My dude's been tearing his hair out recently while he tries to do everything he can to help the people in this country-sized expanse of Carolina and Tennessee and what have you, who have no power, no water, and can't even escape by car because the roads have been destroyed. FEMA won't even let anyone help. Apparently, their job is to continue to ruthlessly rinse these disaster victims for every penny they have and give it all to illegal immigrants and fucking LGBTQ people or whatever. And you might say this is only happening. This is only happening because pathological liars like Alejandro Mayorkas have been ill-advisedly left in charge of such things. But I would put it to you, this is an inevitable consequence of even having such a thing as a federal government. It's basically the same as the EU, maybe not quite the same, since at least everyone in America has the same language and sort of basically the same culture. But honestly, having one regulatory body in charge of such a massive landmass is just asking for trouble. Putting a small oligarchy of megalomaniacal chancers in charge of the best part of a continent is already going too far. That's a scope larger than any human mind can comprehend, let alone the tiny mind of the likes of Mayorkas. So, of course, a government of such scale is going to lose track of any obligation to help the people who live in that vast stretch of land. They're inevitably going to turn their attention to world domination by undermining their own people and replacing their own people in favor of a globalized population that they can go on to control forever. They won't just become indifferent to the problems of Americans. They will actively hate you. They will deliberately kill you with artificial hurricanes and then replace you with a bunch of nowhere people sitting in their nowhere land, making all their nowhere plans for nobody. So, yeah, if you're going to have a federal government, if you absolutely insist on it, the very least you can do is reduce it. Shrink it as far as you can feasibly shrink it. I really hope Trump gets in and puts Elon Musk in charge so he can do with the federal government what he did with Twitter and sack the 80% of it that's doing nothing but pointless earth-scorching bullshit. And when he's done with America, I hope he comes to Europe and does the same shit over here. It would be long overdue. All hail Elon Musk. Long live Elon Musk. I don't mind that he laughs awkwardly, just like Kamala Harris does. I don't mind that he jumps around on stage at political rallies, just like AOC does. The point is, he's not a massive narcissist. He's a massive autist. and that's what the world needs right now. I will leave you with that bombshell.
That's true enough. You know, I saw this on Twitter, and somebody actually, it was today, I think I saw it, because people were getting a little bent out of shape about it, but there was a tweet related to this incident, specifically with these guys coming together as individuals to try to save people in their community, which is basically just like the right thing to do, right? Very, very based rednecks, I gotta say. And somebody said, I have this tweet here. I'm just gonna read it. It says, "Is this why the left hates white men?" Footage from the private citizen recovery efforts for Hurricane Helene, and it has like clips, and it says, "You think that there's a war on straight white men because they show us exactly why we don't need the government." And then it just shows, a bunch of like guys like, doing their thing and helping out. Now, I took a little bit of a disagreement with it. I said it's because they are men, not because they are white. Because first of all, I don't think it's accurate to say that. But I also don't think it's like a healthy thing to feed into in general. And ultimately, as long as we're like dealing with this in this framework where it's like, you know, black men have it extra bad because of this, then and white men have it extra bad because of that or whatever. You're creating unnecessary division, and ultimately, the only thing that really matters is that they are men, because that's the reason why. That doesn't mean there aren't women helping. I'm sure there are. I'm certain there are plenty. But when it comes down to like how much gets done, it's gonna be the men. Like that's what it is, and yeah, and this is like speaking to the point that I've been making lately, which is that the biggest threat to the state and to statists and socialists and communists and whatever are families that are intact with a father and a mother in the home, like that, like that is a part of their family and involved. That's the biggest threat, because what it means is those children are going to grow up less dependent on the state, maybe even completely independent. And these guys here acting out like what is needed are proof of that. So I'm just saying, like, that's what the takeaway was for me. I knew when I heard the disaster happen and people were looking for help, I was like, I could see it now. A bunch of dudes probably don't even know each other. They all come together in a place and like, we have to help people. Look, what do you have? What do you have? How can you help? How can you help? So that's what I would say. But yeah, obviously men doing what men do. And I think that people are appreciating it, because that tweet was making the rounds for sure. And I think that appreciation for men, I mean, we need it. There's no getting around it. So let's go. That's what I say, is let's go. All right, anyway, let's move on to the next story, and let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I think I got a super chow. Yes, I did. Meredith G, the top G, gave us $5 and says, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Wow, that's probably not far from me. I'm in Roanoke, Virginia. I don't know if Charlotte's on the east side or the west side. Anyway, I know of several people in my area who have been part of the organizing flights resources into Western North Carolina. The key has been, if they have a contact in the region, accept the resources. All right, thank you. Yeah, we already asked that you guys support in whatever way you can. I think the most important thing they need is water. That's what I've heard last. And there is another hurricane coming, so we'll see. We'll have to brace ourselves for that. But let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're gonna move on to the next story. So here we go. New York Post, another one. While an anti-Israel protest occurred outside of the White House, a protester set himself on fire. This is like the second time this has happened, by the way.
It's the third time.
Third time? I only
we
know about
know
the
of.
one. Yeah. Samuel Mina Jr. is now the third man to self-immolate this year for political reasons. Mina, or Menya, I'm not really sure, who previously worked as a journalist for the Arizona CBS affiliate AZ Family, that's Arizona Family, lit some form of accelerant coating his left arm on fire. Fellow protesters were quick to extinguish Mina with clothing and water bottles. As his left arm was extinguished, Mina screamed, quote, "We spread the misinformation," end quote. And as a woman approached to comfort him, he said, quote, "I'm a journalist and I said it was okay," end quote. Mina was taken into custody moments later. Mina's reasoning for his actions can be found in a lengthy blog post he made hours before the act on his personal website. Within the post, Mina questioned the media's objectivity on the role the U.S. was playing in the war in Gaza. Mina even stated at the end, quote, "To the 10,000 children in Gaza that have lost a limb in this conflict, I give my left arm to you. I pray my voice was able to raise up yours and that your smiles never disappear," end quote. Mina is currently being treated in a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
I'm. At what
No,
point?
no, I know.
At what point do we conclude that mentally ill men are being exploited by geopolitical propaganda? Not just exploited, sacrificed. I'd say that point is not just now, but a long ass time ago, and it's still ongoing. I don't attribute every atrocity to mental illness. Not all suicides are a result of mental illness. For instance, some people get terminal diseases like cancer or whatever, and they know they're going to die. And as I think I pointed out once, if you know you're going to die slowly and painfully, then in a way it sort of makes sense to instead choose to die suddenly and painlessly. Moreover, it makes sense to do things that you would never do if you thought your whole life was ahead of you. You'd swim with dolphins. You'd go see the Grand Canyon. You might even try meth just to see what it's like. You might even kill a bunch of people who you've always wanted to kill. Like I said, if you know you're going to die, kind of nothing is off the table. It's not the low impulse control of mental illness. It's the lucid decisions of someone who has nothing left to lose. Luckily, terminally ill people don't seem to do that very often. As long as their minds and consciences are intact, they're generally not interested in killing a bunch of people. Unless the CIA needs a patsy, of course, in which case you can expect a knock on the door. But this seemingly newly emergent trend of physically healthy men gravely endangering themselves for causes that have nothing to do with them is a whole different ballpark. We're at the point where the CIA doesn't even need to get involved. All you need is a critical mass of men who hate themselves because they've been taught to hate themselves, and the atrocities will commit themselves. And yes, I would say the compulsion to burn yourself alive is indeed attributable to mental illness. That's not just ordinary self-hatred. And yes, self-hatred can indeed be ordinary, normal even. Lord knows I hate myself. I reflexively remind myself every day that I'm a terrible person and everything I've ever done is pathetic and substandard. But that's just part of my process. The mediocrity of arrogance can only be avoided by vigilant self-humiliation. It's basically the Socratic method. Wisdom can only begin with the assumption that you do not have wisdom. I think it's healthy and I stand by it. But I would certainly never kill myself. Not instantaneously, anyway. And I sure as hell would not set myself on fire. That's fucking retarded. As I said, not just retarded, but severely mentally ill. If you've reached that point, it's because everyone around you has failed you. They have failed to keep you in the safe, healthy zone of ordinary self-hatred. It can only be because everyone around you has only reaffirmed that your life as a man is irredeemable and that men do not have problems because, after all, men are the problem. And that includes your therapist. By the way, people are always talking about how men should go to therapy, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's exactly what this guy did. He saw some YouTube channel doing an advert for BetterHelp, and then he paid out the wazoo for some feminist bigot to tell him he's not sacrificing himself enough. Allegedly, of course, these are all speculations on my part, but seriously, how bad does this have to get? How many otherwise physically healthy men have to self-immolate in public before it occurs to anyone that men do have problems and that their problems are only exasperated by a society that only reinforces their belief that they are the problem and they're the ones who need to change? And no, it's not just feminists. It's damn near all of you. That's the problem. That's what I think anyway. Sorry. Carry on.
My answer to that is really not going to be pretty. And I understand what this guy might have been trying to do. And if he was female, more people would have paid attention and more people would have been sympathetic to his cause. But if you are a man trying to use self-injury to gain sympathy for a cause, you have to understand that until greater society learns the importance of having compassion for men, that is an ineffective strategy. Right? Everything Mike said, I'm not going to repeat it all. I agree with it. Aside from the self-criticism, but you gotta understand, you are essentially throwing away your suffering when you do that as men. It's not right and it's not fair that people don't have that compassion, and that people will not look at that and say, gosh, maybe there's something that this guy wants to tell us that we should listen to. But nobody will. Nobody except people like us, whose opinions the majority and the establishment aren't beholden to. They don't have to listen to us because we are excommunicated from society. Right? This is really not the way. If you want them to listen, you have to help put somebody in office that is going to fire them from their jobs. That's the only way. We got one chance. We got a politician promising to do that. The only politician that's ever promised to do that. And there's a chance that he might keep his promise, because historically he has kept many of them. That's probably the best bet we have for putting an end to this bullshit of the United States funding both fucking sides of multiple foreign wars and then sending our boys in to die, cleaning up their own mess that they created in these foreign countries. The government's own mess, not the boys' own mess. Don't kill yourself. Don't set yourself on fire. Go to the polls. Even if you've never done it before, go to the polls. That's your only chance.
All right. I gotta agree with Hannah on that for sure. Like, this is not the best way to make change. That's why, like, I kind of shy away from even the, well, I don't know. Some people have an idea of what it means to be a men's rights activist, and it means like being out, getting attention with signs and protests and stuff. And I'd prefer to have conversations, and I don't see myself, like opening up a men's shelter. I just don't have the funds. So what is it I can do is talk, and so I do this. So I think that there are other ways that you could like make change. I think talking is a big one. And I agree with Mike on the whole, like, mentally ill men who are made fragile by things like that preceded even us being born, like you just create the conditions, you create the society that essentially creates mentally disabled men with the way that they're brought up, with the way that they're educated, etc. Then all you got to do is find a few, like you're basically increasing your pot of potential tools to use for political gain, scoring points, whatever, assassinations, just some random things. And that is not, that's not that crazy. I mean, there is such a thing as stochastic terrorism. So but yeah, good points on that all around. Is he here? Okay. Let me just read this last write-up. I'll let you guys talk to it, and then I gotta go deal with this new mattress. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. We're gonna move on to the last story here. Leave Jojo in there, I'll come out. At a gig by the
I can read it out if you need to go now.
Oh yeah. Why don't you do that? Thank you. Yes, I'll be right back.
All right. Patriarchy is grabbed by the gonads. At a gig by the last dinner party in Lincoln, male attendees who arrived alone faced discriminatory treatment from venue security at the engine shed. These men were subjected to thorough searches, interrogations, and condescending questioning under a policy that was purportedly implemented due to incidents at a previous concert by the same band. This policy which was not coordinated with the band, resulted in men being funneled into a separate area and being treated with suspicion, with one individual recounting being accused of potentially being a pervert simply for attending alone. The venue, the Engine Shed, later issued an apology, admitting that the entry procedure did not meet their usual policy of treating all attendees equally. They clarified that the changes to their security protocol were made with good intentions, but acknowledged the treatment of some guests was unacceptable. Despite this new policy, the last dinner party was not informed in advance, and the band expressed their disappointment and shock over the treatment of their fans. Unfortunately, the gig was eventually cancelled at the last minute due to an illness within the band, adding to the night's disappointments. This incident sparked discussions and complaints on social media platforms, highlighting issues of gender profiling and security overreach at live music events.
I remember years ago there was a flight in which a woman hid a bomb in her bra and blew up on a plane. I don't remember how many people died from that, but I do remember that in the immediate aftermath of that, women were searched at airports randomly, and the search involved basically having to flash your breasts to show that you had nothing in your bra. And there was this big hullabaloo, this big, sexisms, misogynies, and everybody was on board with it. Men, women, everybody was, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can use a wand to find it. You can use the metal detector to find it. There should have to be at least some suspicion before you go looking there. Nobody thought this was a bad idea until somebody complained afterward. And there's a precedent, obviously, for thinking it's a bad idea, given that situation. They were fine with body cavity searches and all kinds of stuff. The TSA was doing them in, by the way, and they were fine with men just being pulled out of the line with no reason to suspect that particular man and subjected to all kinds of examinations. But the minute that it involved women's boobs, it was a big problem, right? But these guys, nobody considered that they might have any level of objection to this and that it might be sexism to just presume a guy a pervert because he is by himself. Men aren't allowed to go to concerts alone. They're not allowed to ask chicks to concerts, right? You ask a chick to a concert, you just trespassed. You can get accused of stalking and harassment now, and being creepy and pervy for wanting to take her with you. Especially if you're not already in a relationship with her, right? Like if you ask for a first date to go to a concert, you're screwed, right? At a party, same thing. Take a chick to a party. Take a chick to any kind of gig where there's going to be a big crowd and you're not going to know everybody. Obviously, you're just taking her for having somebody to cover your ass, right? But don't go alone either, because now you're a pervert for going alone. Then they're going to complain when men don't patronize their events. And as far as there being previous incidents at a concert or a party by the same band, I want to point something out. In Japan, there are train cars just for women. Just for women. And the reason is because of a phenomenon of frequent allegations of groping on train cars in a society where getting accused of groping can be death for a man by his own hand. He can feel socially obligated to kill himself for that, even today. And the thing about allegations is you don't know until you examine the evidence whether or not they are true. Women have a tendency to feel groped because they have been touched. And being touched doesn't necessarily mean that the individual was seeking out any physical contact deliberately. When you're on a train or at a party or at a concert or any other crowded venue or location, it can mean that somebody was shoved into you by, especially on a train or at a concert, the movement of the crowd. Right? It can mean a person was unaware of the items on their back and how those may have come into contact with other people. You know, it can be completely by accident. Yeah, there can be incidents where groping happens. But because there were so many allegations, it's 100% certain that a significant number of them were false. And when you're talking about a concert, the same thing is true. When you're talking about a party, the same thing is true. There are a lot of incidents where women think that somebody deliberately reached for body parts they shouldn't be touching, or they think of themselves as groped because somebody's elbow bumped into their arm. And they make allegations against guys who did nothing deliberate or wrong, and they embarrass the hell out of them. And they embarrass the hell out of the venue or the party holder or the owner of the public transportation or whatever by pretending to have not been safe in a location where they were totally safe and unmolested. So, yeah, men getting thrown under the bus, men getting treated like criminals when they're completely innocent is a result of this kind of Me Too behavior where women jump to conclusions or even fantasize about the attention they get from their victimhood and then make false allegations in mass. And some guy who did absolutely nothing and hasn't even had an opportunity to not do anything because he hasn't been in the circumstance yet gets treated like he's already done something bad for no reason.
And one might ask the question: where on earth do we go from here? How could it possibly get worse from this position?
I'm back.
Hi. Yeah, you know about the story, right? You know the story we're talking about.
Yeah, the way that these people were treated at these guys,
the men weren't allowed in because they were alone, and I'm about to say, where on earth could we go from here? How on earth could it get worse from here? I mean, given that apparently this policy was not even coordinated with the band, and I'm like, there were quite a lot of bands who did coordinate this policy that you're not allowed into the gig unless you've had a certain injection. And this isn't just one band. This is lots of bands that you're not allowed into the venue unless you've had an injection that they knew didn't prevent transmission of the thing it was supposed to be prevent. It's the Foo Fighters I'm thinking of, but it was many other bands. And it's not just
the Flu Fighters.
Yes.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Taylor Hawkins, who died from an enlarged heart. I wonder which drug did that to him. Anyway, but yeah, to put this in perspective. I mean, I know this is a men's issues focused channel, but I have to be like, this is kind of nothing compared to the shit we've already been through. That people who knew that these jabs did nothing to prevent transmission, nevertheless, wouldn't let you into the venue without these jabs. And then they went, "Who's had Moderna? Woo!" Woo! Who's had Pfizer? Woo! Who's had AstraZeneca? Woo! Well, that's been taken off the market because it kills people. Oh well. So yeah, it's difficult to even get annoyed about this, given about what's already happened. Given that Foo Fighters killed their fucking drummer with this eugenic insistence that you can't come into the venue unless you've had a lethal injection. Have I got us taken off the air forever just by saying that? Oh, never mind. I didn't write this down. I saying it all off the cuff. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good. You're always good off the cuff, Mr. Cam. I never heard of this band Last Dinner Party, so I thought I would look them up really quick. And I guess they're pretty young, like in their 20s though. So I mean, I guess I'm trying to, and it's stupid. You should never try to rationalize these things because it's pointless and a pointless exercise. But I thought, well, if it was like a bunch of 40-year-old dudes that went to like, like a Blues Clues concert or something, well, like some like obvious children's thing, then I could see how there might be some suspicions if they were there alone. But I would also say that if women showed up to those things, grown as fuck, right? But this is just a normal concert. These are like mid-20s musicians, and their fans are probably like teenagers or something. But then it's also entirely possible that um, that this was because sometimes you go to shows and you got to be 18 or over to get in. But if you want to like broaden your customer base and allow more people on, you could like lower the age. There's some places where if they don't sell alcohol there, for example, I don't know how it works in England or wherever this happened, um, then you would probably have limitation. You would have limitations on, or people have to show ID or something. So anyway, but yeah, it's obviously a monstrous way to treat men who might be fans, and it just shows like this is like essentially how we view men, especially when they're alone, yes, in groups, same, like So yeah, it's kind of messed up. Hannah, what
There
did
seems
you?
to be this view in society where women can do no wrong, women can go anywhere, do anything, everything is okay, and so on. But men have to be female approved in order to have the same rights. And nobody treats that outside the men's movement. Nobody treats that as a form of discrimination or cruelty or abuse or anything. But if it was the reverse, we'll look at how people talk about Islamic countries where guardianship includes women not being able to go anywhere without male protection. And the whole point of that is the idea that men have to be male approved in order to be around other women. So they're objecting because women are restricted on that basis. But men
Yep.
having to be female approved in Western countries, nobody bats an eye.
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah, just another piece of feminist hypocrisy for the ever burning. By the way, here's an
I would
image
say
of the
feminists are
band, I
not
guess,
entirely to
Last
blame
Dinner
for this.
Party.
This is
No,
gynocentrism.
sure.
Gynocentrism is to blame for that one.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. So yeah, this is Last Dinner Party. They're young, but they're not children. And so
Yeah.
that was like, my first, like, I don't think it's about that anyway. It's again, like we were saying, it's just about fear mongering men. So, um, all right. Well, anyway, I just checked. I didn't see any super chats or whatever. Sorry that I had to step away, but we just got a new mattress, and because Lindsay's back was bad, and we have one of those memory foam things that sounded cool, but they always only last like a year. So we got a decent one. It kind of like hit the wallet kind of hard, but I think that the quality of sleep improvement was worth it. Anyway, that was a big digression. I apologize. That's another piece of news. Bonus story: Brian got a mattress. So, and it's a big deal. Anyway, um, Yeah, so we're gonna go now into the patron show, and we're gonna talk about Rachel Zegler because that's my favorite thing to do. Also, I want to point out Variety misspelled her name. I'm sure they got shit for that because it's Szieegler, and it just says Zegler. So Variety, do better. I think that's weird. And anyway, we're gonna go into the patron show and find out like why is it that she's watched women get torn down her whole life despite being again a millionaire actress that is pretty unlikable. Like, get rid of her, give us Jenna Ortega. Jenna Ortega seems okay. So,
By the way, that's a white girl. Prove me wrong. Fight me.
Zegler?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I'm sorry, but look at
Ziegler or Zegler. I don't know how you
Ziegler.
pronounce it, but
I don't know.
that's not white.
There are people with last names spelled that way in my area that are their name is pronounced Ziegler, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always pronounced that way everywhere.
Mhm.
But her skin's lighter than mine.
If West Africans and East Africans are the same race, then I'm sorry, but North Europeans and South Europeans are the same race. I don't get why that's a thing.
I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know where she's from. I mean, I think that she's supposed to be Latina. That's why I said Jenna Ortega is a better substitute. But yeah, we're gonna be looking at that in that patron show. So if you want to join us, you have to become a patron. Go to pthebadger.com/subscribe to join us in the Discord. You'll be able to watch the additional content, and if you give it higher levels, you'll even be able to be a part of the conversation itself. So please consider doing that. All right. So let us wrap up the show, but we did get one more super chat from Albernata Retro, who gave us $5 Canadian and said, those Alamo Drafthouse cinemas wouldn't let men see Wonder Woman 2017 on opening night. I'd never go to one of them again. They don't have them.
Then they
out here. I
got
don't know
mad
what
that
those
men didn't
are.
go to see Wonder Woman.
Yeah, then they got mad that men didn't go. But I mean, Wonder Woman did do well. I think men did.
Yeah.
Men and women watched it. I didn't think it was awful. I mean, it was fine. Wonder Woman 2,
It's
not so good, but-
because women asked their husbands and boyfriends to take them to see that movie. So
Yeah,
later
yeah.
on, but men didn't go see that movie on their own. And but there were articles about that fact. You know, oh, this movie, dudes, this movie's not for you. And then why aren't dudes coming to see this movie? You said.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go into that now. Thank you for the super chats and support and watching the show. So hopefully we'll see you in the patron show. But if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News. We'll see you guys in the next video. They tried to kill him. See you next Tuesday. Squeeze it all in there.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.